what we previously did in data cleaning was finding hidden data, unhiding columns, adjusting row sizes, finding if there's any data hidden far away in the file, reviewing data and notes and comments, and finding and recoloring invisible data. And also on making data legible by clearing formats, working in an Excel table, erasing unnecessary spaces, and changing the cases for case-sensitive data. Then in the second part, we focused on transforming columns into MCPD descriptors by either splitting one into many or merging many into one, and then mapping the labels of our columns to MCPD, and also then the coded values, the individual values that are coded in MCPD. And then we touched a bit on other data formats other than coded values, such as dates and geographic coordinates. We mainly formatted the dates into the MCPD standard and looked at how to convert geographic coordinates from the degrees, minutes, seconds into decimals. All of these are already in the 2 previous recordings. And today we will continue by reformatting other data types, such as countries of origin, institute codes, multiple entries in MCPD, and what do we do with missing values. And then we will touch on some data validation tips and tools, such as validating for a very common error in Excel that is click and drag, that can happen in different data types and passport data, such as also checking for duplicated numbers or duplicated rows. And then we will have a look at the validator tool that looks mainly at taxonomy and geographic coordinates, and seeing how we can potentially use this tool to correct or autocomplete even this type of data. So what you will see is the main working area in Excel with a data sample that we created for the purpose of this demonstration. And you will see the keyboard just in case you want to see what kind of shortcuts are being used. And with that, I will stop sharing this presentation and start sharing Excel. So this is the data sample that we will be working with today. In part 1, this is how it looked like. Then in part 2, after cleaning it, it became a little bit more visible, legible, but it wasn't really mapped to MCPD. Then we did map it to MCPD when it comes to column labels and some coded values, and we touched a bit on date formatting, and we transformed the geographic coordinates from DMS to decimals. So this is how it finally looks like today, and this is where we'll be starting from. So what we will be first looking at is when we have cases where country names and institutes are not conforming to the MCPD standard. So countries in MCPD have to be coded. So we have to use the ISO 31066 standard for country names. So in this case, Zambia should be ZMB and Peru should be PER. But instead of doing these manually, we showed last time in the part 2 of the series a source of these codes. I will share it here. So this is a GitHub link that you will find in the documentation I will be sharing with you, that links basically all the country names to their Alpha 2 and Alpha 3 ISO codes and a lot of other information. What we will use is the Alpha 3. We saw last time how we were able to create a lookup table out of this source of data. And Now we will use this lookup table in order to link these country names to their codes of ISO codes. So I would be adding another column right next to the origin city column. I will call this original. And I will call this one origin city. So that would be the final one. I will open the lookup table that I created out of the source that I showed you from GitHub. Separate Excel file. It's recommended that you keep all of your lookup tables in a folder, in a separate folder, and in separate Excel files. So this is the one here. And what I want to do is that I want to look up Zambia from this file and then return the alpha-3 code. If you have only one country name in the file, it would be easier to, instead of doing the lookup, to just select all of this column. If you only have Zambia, for example, across all of your sheet, it would be easier to use the find and replace tool in Excel. So you would tell Excel to find Zambia, replace it with ZMB, that you check what the code is in the other file, and make sure to match the case and find entire cells only, and then replace all. So that's an easier way if you have only a few or one country name to map to the ISO code. But if you have many, if you have really a lot of countries, then it would be easier to use the VLOOKUP function that we already saw in part 2. So in this following manner, so you click on equals, VLOOKUP. You're telling Excel to look up this cell, this value here. Press on comma space, and then go to the other Excel file where your country lookup table is. Then you select this entire table and you press comma 3 because you want Excel to look up the first column and return the third one. So you press on 3, you close the you press on comma false because I want an exact match in this case. And I close the parentheses and I press on enter. And you see automatically Excel has found these coded values for the countries and automatically completed all the column because I'm working in an Excel table. So all the formula is dragged automatically throughout the entire column, and my country names are mapped to their ISO codes. You can do the same for the views codes. So here I have an example of site of safety duplicates 1, site of safety duplicates 2. In MCPD, the site of safety duplicates are supposed to be views code. So IITA is supposed to be NGA 039. Now, where did I get this from, this code? I will show you the source that is here. So that's the source of FAO views. And you can run here a search by name or by acronym. And this will return to you the views codes of the institute. If your gene bank doesn't have an institute code, you can either contact your national focal point or send an email to views@fao.org. We saw last time how we can create a lookup table also out of this source. We basically showed it in part 2, and I will open the file right now. So this is the lookup table that we created in part 2 for the views codes. It had all the valid views codes in the FAO database. And they are cross-referenced with the name of the organization, the acronym, the parent organization, and the views codes of the parent organization, address, city, country, etc. What we are mostly interested in is to look up the views codes to the name or acronym. And you can use the same VLOOKUP function that we used here for the country of origin. You can use it for any other column to look up the acronyms or the names to their views codes. But sometimes, for example, Svalbard in the views database is not written as Svalbard. So in your own data, it could be written as Svalbard, but in the views database, it would be written as, I will show you, probably as the global seed vault, Svalbard global seed vault. Here, Svalbard global seed vault. So if you use the lookup function, it will not return NOR 051. It will say that there's an error because it's not able to find Svalbard alone. It's finding Svalbard global seed vault. I will show you how that would, what this type of error would look like in this case. So I will insert a column right next to site of safety duplicate. I will rename it, and I will reuse again the VLOOKUP function. So it's equals VLOOKUP. I open the parentheses and I select the first cell. Then I type in comma, space. Then without typing anything or pressing anything, I will go to the Excel file of the views lookup table, and I will select the first 3 columns I have. So the views codes with name of organization, organization acronym, and I will select them all. Then press comma space. I want this function to return the first column in this case, and now we're going to see an error. So I'll show you how you can fix it. So because I want this function to look up either the name of the organization or the organization acronym and return the views code. So that's what I want as a return data. So I press on 1 because that's where the return data is located in the first column. And then I press on comma space false because I want an exact match. And then I press enter. I'll see here there's an A. So this means that the function was not able to find anything. There's 2 problems here. The first one is because Svalbard is not found alone as a name or an acronym in the views database. But also the second problem is that this function that we used called VLOOKUP that you might be familiar with from the previous parts only works if the value you are looking up, so this value, is the first column in the lookup table. But in this case, so Svalbard, the acronym or the name they are not in the first column, they are in the second and third. But in order for VLOOKUP to work, it has to be those 2, one of them have to be in the first column, and then this views code has to be in later columns, second, third, fourth. So there's an alternative formula that we use in this case when we have our lookup table structured this way, kind of inversed, which is called XLOOKUP. And just for that function to work, just for demonstrating the specific function, I will write Svalbard as we see it in as it is in the database, so that you see how the function works. Sorry. Just one moment. Okay. So the function here still doesn't find anything when looking up Svalbard global seed vault. But let's try to use another function. Let's delete this one and use xlookup. So it equals xlookup, and it works differently. So we select this first cell, we press on, sorry. So we are looking this up. This is the lookup value. This would be the lookup array. Sorry, it wouldn't be the 3 columns. It would be only the column where we are looking up. And in this case, we are looking up the name of the organization. So it would be, we would be looking up only through this column, and then comma space, we would be returning this column, the first one. So we select all of it. And then we close the parentheses and press enter. And in this case, we were able to find Svalbard Global Seed Vault and return its views code. If it's only one site of safety duplicates, you can use the find and replace that we saw for the country of origin here. But if it's many, if it's really a lot of different names that you want to match to their views codes, then it's easier to use the xlookup function when your lookup table is structured in a way where this return is not the second or third or fourth column, when it's in the first column. Otherwise, you can use the VLOOKUP function if this is second, third, or fourth, etc. And you can do the same for all of your data, all of your values that are supposed to be institute codes. So that is the site of safety duplicates. That would be also the collecting institute call code. And that would be the inst code, which is your own institute code, so your own gene bank. Also, the donor, it's not here in this sample file, but also as codes, we have the donor institute and the breeding institute, if those fields apply in your data. So this way, we saw how we can map country of origin and codes of institutes, reformat them or map them to their MCPD format. Another another tool or thing you might need to do in order to make your data compliant with the MCPD standard is how do you deal with multiple entries? So site of safety duplicates, if we go to the MCPD guide, which is found in a PDF I will be sharing with you after this demonstration. If we go to the descriptor of safety duplicates and read, so FAO views code of the institute or institutes, so that's a multiple, where safety duplicate of the accession is maintained. What do we do with multiple values? Well, multiple values in this case are separated by a semicolon without space. It follows the inst code standard. So multiple values across all of the descriptors in MCPD actually that allow multiple values have to be in the same column and separated by a semicolon without space. So what do we do here if you have your site of safety duplicates in 2 different columns? There's a question in the chat. Sorry, I'm reading right now. Please copy here the formula example you created. And do you share this instruction to everyone? Yes, we did the same for part 1 and part 2. And also for this part, we will do the same. So we will circulate a step-by-step PDF guide of all these steps that I'm applying right here with all the links and all the tips that I'm presenting. It also includes the formulas in English, but also French and Spanish. So you will be receiving that separately after the demonstration. Yeah. Well, we were looking at the site of safety duplicates and we want to merge it into one that's separated by a semicolon. And that's how we want to handle multiple entries. So what I would do right here in order to merge these two. Well, before I have to transform IITA into a views code, right? Just the same way I did for Svalbard. So for this one, I will show you how I can use the find and replace instead of the XLOOKUP. So you see two methods. So I will copy here this value IITA. I will select this entire column and I will go to find and select, click on replace. I will erase both before doing anything. And then I want Excel to find I've paste, so IITA, and I want to replace it with the views code of IITA that I can find here in the views database that I showed you. So that would be NGA 039. And make sure that the case is matched and find the entire cells only that those two are ticked, and click on replace all. So the new column that I will add, where I will merge the site of safety duplicates into one column and separate them with a semicolon, I will use this one and this one, the two views codes. So I will add a column right next to the last site of safety duplicates one. And I go to the MCPD PDF, and I check that what the location of safety duplicates, what's the column called in MCPD, that's duple site. I will copy and paste it in the column name. So that's duple site. And I want to tell Excel that this new column, so this new data point, equals the first one, and then I type and, I open the quotes for text, and I press a semicolon, and then I close the quotes for text, and then I press on and again, and then I press on the second views codes here. So I'm telling Excel that this new cell equals the first one and the semicolon and the second cell, and I press on enter. And you see here, now my final site of safety duplicates data is merged into one and separated by two values merged into one cell, separated by semicolon without space. If we wanted space in between, then here in the formula, before and after the semicolon, I will add space and then press enter. And you see now there's spaces. And then I can also delete those spaces from the formula and press enter. And now the spaces are gone. Something to keep in mind, we already shared it in part 2 and 1 of this series, is that when you have your data as formulas, if you happen to delete the original columns that this formula refers to, so if I delete those, my final column will be an error because it's still linking to columns that now do not exist anymore, that have been deleted. So in order to avoid doing that, in order to avoid this scenario, after you make sure that, okay, this is how I want my data to be, to look like, that's the final formula, it's all good, then you select this entire column, you click on copy, you go to the home ribbon, click on paste values. So you don't paste, you just scroll below to paste values. So this would paste this data as only the value without the formula. And you see here, I don't have formulas anymore. And if I happen to delete accidentally or intentionally any column, my final site of safety duplicates is not an error anymore, it's showing the actual data. I will proceed with what do we do, how do we handle blanks in the MCPD standards. So I will go back to the PDF because that's what we have to refer to every time. It has to be this MCPD standard. So I will try to find the word blanks or blank in the standard. It's not showing, but I'm pretty sure that it is. There is a note about it somewhere in this file. Yeah, null. So it's null values. So here the MCPD PDF says that the common formatting rule for a field for which no value is available should be left empty. If data are exchanged in the SC format, a field with a missing numeric value should be left empty. But if a data is exchanged in a database format, missing numeric values should be presented by generic null values. Now, if you're not handling your data in a database, if you're handling it in Excel, you might want to keep the missing values or the empty values. You might want to leave them as an empty cell or indicate that it's null. So I will show you how you can do both depending on the standards you use in your own gene bank. This is a quick tip. So here in this sample of data, the blank cells are left empty. So the empty or the missing values are left as blank cells here and here, for example, all the remarks are empty. But if I want to replace this blank cell with null or nil or NA, depending on what you prefer in your gene bank, a way to do that would be to first, in the home ribbon, click on Find and Select, go to Special, and select blanks here from this menu. So you're telling Excel, please select in my table all the blanks. You click on OK. And now it's selected all the blanks in my file, but I want only the blanks in my table. So what I would do instead is I would select all the table and go to Special, click on blanks. So I'm telling Excel, I want you to go to the blanks only in this selection, which is my table. And I click on OK. So it's selected here, this cell, and all of these cells here in remarks. Now I want to replace the blanks with null. So I go to, while this selection is active, I go to find and replace, so replace here. And I want to tell Excel to find the blanks, so I keep this empty, and replace it with null, or you might use NA, etc. Let's go for null. So find from this selection the empty fields, make sure that match case and find entire cells only are ticked so that not every single, just make sure that those two are checked. Keep this empty, right here null, and then click on replace all. And here you see that all the blanks in the table are transformed into null. You can do the opposite. So if you have null or NA and you want to make it blank, then you can do the opposite. So you select all of your table, you click on replace, so you find null, and you replace with nothing. You keep this empty. Make sure that these two are ticked, and click on replace all. So now we kind of reverted this back. We went from null to blank. And we saw earlier how we went from blank to null. So depending on how you want to go about it, this is a quick tip on how to go about it in Excel. So Before moving on to some data validation, please let me know if you have any questions, drop them in the chat before we have a look at what to do in the cases where you have this very common Excel error where you click and drag, and instead of having the same value, Excel starts adding one number. This is common. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. That's why it's very easy to overlook. Sometimes if you drag, Excel will copy the same, but other times if you drag, it will add one. And this can happen to all the coded values, storage. It can happen to the latitudes and longitudes. This is supposed to be decimal longitude. This can happen also sometimes to the, where is it? To the dates. So you see here, my first date is the 10th of December, 2019. Sometimes if I click and drag, instead of copying the same date, it would start adding one day. This is especially important if you are publishing data in Genesys. So from our side, this would look like if this happened in the geographic coordinates. So if you add one decimal longitude or one decimal latitude accidentally to your geographic data, this would be very visible on any map, including the Genesys map. So I will show you how these occurrences look like. So when you have a click and drag error when it comes to the latitude, it could drag one point from here to the sea, and it would look like as a very vertical line separated by an equal distance. This is obviously an error. So this is obviously skipping 1 or 10 or 100, or this is obviously skipping in an increment, which could be this case of click and drag error. If both latitudes and longitudes are skipping increments of 1 or 10, then it would look like the accession is moving diagonally. Although probably all of those were collected from the same point. So, I mean, one way of checking for this is to visualize how it looks on a map and see if there are these occurrences. But you can check for those in Excel. There's a very quick tip on how to do that by adding a column next to, for example, the longitude. You say that this cell here is the difference between this and this. So this minus, so 28. So the cell below minus the cell above. If there's a lot of one different, it could indicate that you have a click and drag error. The Excel has added 1 or 10. Let's see how this looks like. So this first cell here equals the second one in longitude minus the first longitude. And you see here we clicked, we see that there's one. If you filter out the ones, you see that, you know, they're consecutive and they're many. And so probably this happened, this error happened. You can also do it for all the coded values, for example, storage. Maybe this all is supposed to be 10, but there has been a click and drag error. So you do the same, the second storage minus the first one. And you see also this happened. I mean, now this is easily, we can see it easily because we only have like 15 rows of data. But if you have 1,000 or 5,000, you might want to use this little formula if you cannot see all of your data points to check for also the date. It can happen in the date. And I will show you, it's a little more detailed than that. So if you click on insert table column here, and you tell Excel that this is equal the difference between the second date minus the first. If it's in a date, if this cell is in a date format, then 1, the value 1 would be 1900 January the 1st. If you want to check if this is equal to number 1, you transform the format of this difference. You transform it from the home ribbon. And this little rectangle, you click on either text or number. So you transform the date format to either a text or a number to visualize what is this date equivalent of in terms of number or text. So this is equivalent of 1. In Excel, day 1 or date number 1 is 1900 January the 1st. So if I keep it as a date format, it would show as a date. If I change it to a number, it would show me the difference, which is 1. So this might indicate that there has been a click and drag error also in my dates. Now, how do we fix that? Is it was it a dragging from top? Was it a drag error from top to bottom, or was it from bottom to top? This is something you might need to check with your original source of data, whether it's a data collection sheet or a data collection software, or the curators or the data collectors in your gene bank you'll have to check with the source to see in which direction to correct this error. Same for the geographic coordinates, and same for the other occurrences to decide how do you fix it. This is just a little tip on how you can spot potentially these potential error. So the second tip I want to show you is how do you check for duplicates. The most important duplicate to check for is the accession number, or any number or any data that has to be unique in your passport data. Accession numbers is an example, DOI is another example. Also, you want to check if you have entire rows that are duplicated. And when you have like thousands of rows, we might need a systematic way to check for those. So in this case, you can use the conditional formatting of Excel. You select the column you want to work on to check for duplicated accession numbers. You go to the home ribbon, click on the conditional formatting menu. And the first sub-menu, highlight cell rules, we will click on highlight the cell rule of duplicated values. So I'm telling Excel that I want the program to highlight all the duplicated values in this color. I can change it, but I'll keep it as that and click OK. And Excel now highlighted all the duplicated values that I can now, if I'm working in a table, filter out. If I click here on the filter symbol, and in the filter category, I want to filter the cells by color, and the cell color is the rows that I chose in the conditional formatting. So these are only the duplicated values. And then I can see what to do about them. Is it an error in the accession number? Should that be 118? Then it's not a duplicate anymore. Or is the entire row duplicated? There is a way to check, do a further check on, okay, is this accession number, does it have the same genus, or does the accession number 108, are they different genera? So in this case, I have the same accession number, OS 108, with different genus names and different species names even, and probably all the other data, different acquisition dates. So how do I check also for these types of duplicates? So a way to do that is by, okay, I'll add a column. I'll call it duplicate check. And I will combine here, I will combine, I will clear formats first, and I will combine all of the variables that I want to check for if they are duplicated. So for example, here, I want to check if this and the genus and the species are duplicated. So what I did here is that I created a cell where I combined the text of the accession number with the genus, with the species in one string, in one line. And I will apply here the same conditional formatting. So conditional formatting, highlight cell values and highlight duplicate values, maybe in another color. And I see here that this Excel is telling me that in this case, those duplicated values here, if I filter them out, if I filter out the duplicated accession numbers, Excel is telling me here that those same accession numbers do not have the same genus and the same species, except for the last two. So the last two have the same genus and species. You can add here as many variables, as many passport data as you want. You can go until the end to check exactly what is matching, what is duplicated, what passport data is duplicated for these duplicated accession numbers. Right now, I only use genus, species, and accession number, and I see that this is matching the same genus, species, and accession number, and I can decide that this would be my cutoff. If they are the same genus, species, and accession number, then I will delete this entire row. But maybe you have a different cutoff. Maybe it's until the geographic coordinates. You choose what's your cutoff point. At what point do you decide to delete this entire row to decide that this whole thing is a duplicate? Or you can keep it less strict by selecting only a few. And it's just a way for you to see, okay, what are the problematic entries, the duplications, and to just highlight them for you. And then you decide what to do with those instances. So we checked now how we can, a little tip on the click and drag error and on duplicated accession numbers and rows. And now I will move on to validation of taxonomy and geography using a tool that's outside Excel that was developed by the Genesys team. It's called the Passport Data Validator tool. I will share the link with you after the demonstration. Actually, I'll paste it in the chat right now. So you access it through your browser. It's a web tool. This is how it looks like. And this is where you paste your data. And at the very bottom of the page is where you use the different validation types. So you can either click on the button of validate taxonomic data or validate country of origin, or validate if the accession is falling on land or is it falling in water. So these are the three types of validation you can do with this tool. There's a short video on YouTube here where you can learn very basics of how it works. But basically, the most important thing to know is that when you want to use it, your data has to be in MCPD. So, and it only works on the following MCPD columns: genus, species, SP author, subtaxa, subtaxon author, and the geotest requires those three: decimal latitude, decimal longitude, and country of origin. We saw in part 2 how we map our data to those to this MCPD labels. Now we already have them in MCPD. So I want to select all of my table here, copy it, copy and paste it here in the box. So I pasted it. The separator in this case, because I pasted it from Excel and it's in a table, the separator would be a tab. And I can choose if the decimal marks, if I'm using the validator, the geographic validator, I can indicate if the decimal mark, is it a comma or a dot? In my case, it's a dot. And do you want to flag non-current taxa? So the taxonomic validation happens by comparing to the GRIN taxonomy. So this is the reference for the taxonomic validation in this tool, the GRIN taxonomy. So I will click on validate taxonomic data. And you see here that there are columns that are added in yellow. Everything that's not in yellow is my original columns, my original data. Everything that's added in yellow is what the tool has added and worked on. So the first column in yellow you see is called genus check. When genus check is okay, it means that your genus name, according to the GRIN taxonomy, is okay. There's no problem. And when it's not, when there's a value here, it means that the tool looked at this value, noticed that it doesn't match anything in the GRIN taxonomy, any genus name, but it gives you, then it returns two possible close matches. So I have Solanum. The tool says it could be either Solanum or Dalanum. So there's one letter change or two letter changes that could match this one. And the same for the species. So species check, right? When it's okay, it means that the species name, according to the genus, is okay. So it doesn't only check the spelling of the species, but it also matches it to the genus name and it sees if that species makes sense with the genus and if it says okay. So here I have esculent. It looks at the genus and tries to figure out the species and returns the one option that is esculenta. And in the case where the genus in this tool is not correct, it tries to find the first correct match of the genus, which is here Solanum, and says that that's what the species is supposed to be, Lycopersicum. So that's my input. My input is only genus and species. But the tool does something further, three things further, actually. It tries to match the genus and the species with the species authority according to the GRIN taxonomy. So the tool was able to read that the genus is Oryza sativa, and it auto-completed, based on the GRIN taxonomy, the species authority. When there are issues with spelling with the original genus and the original species, the tool doesn't match a species authority because you have to decide how to fix the species first. And based on this modified species, you can return to the tool again after you correct your species name, and it will show you in a species authority after you've corrected your data. So here it is skipped. And also all of these are skipped because you have to decide on what genus is it. But for the ones that are both okay, when the species is okay, and when the genus is okay and the species is okay, it returns the species authority based on the GRIN taxonomy. Now, before you autocomplete your own data based on this tool, please check with your managers, with your curators, because we don't want to add data that might not be in agreement with the management or the curators at your gene bank. So just you can suggest it for them. The tool only provides suggestions. But please check even before you decide how to correct your data. So even before you decide that Solanum is Solanum or Dalanum, just check with your curators before you fix anything based according to this tool. So that was about the taxonomy validation. You can select all of these results by clicking Control-A. So you select all this page and copy it, and you can paste it in Excel. If you open another sheet and click on Paste, and you delete the first columns, the first rows, when pasting, it pastes as as a table. So you have here your species check. So this is what the tool has added, those columns, and also these. So you can have this in a form of Excel also. And if I go one step back, my data is pasted. All of my table is pasted already. I want to show you the validation of country of origin. So the validation of country of origin looked at the geographic coordinates at the decimal longitude and decimal latitude, and it checks if those two coordinates fall in the country that you indicated. You have to have the three. You have to have the decimal latitude, decimal longitude, and country of origin in your data in order for this tool to work. So now I click on validate country of origin. The tool is running. And everything in yellow is what it added. So you see here, there's a lot of columns that are added. For every geographic descriptor, there are 2 columns that are added. For the country of origin, the tool looked at the decimal latitude and original decimal latitude and decimal longitude, and it checked that, okay, where do they fall? That's where it indicates it, and the origin, country of origin check. So this tool is saying that those coordinates fall in Sudan, not in Zambia. The second column, the country of origin distance, that is indicating to you in meters, not in kilometers, and meters, what is the distance of this point that falls in Sudan? What is the distance in meters to the closest borders of your original country of origin, so to Zambia? So now it's saying that there is almost 240 kilometers or even more, like there are 2,400 kilometers away from Zambia, this original point, and it's actually falling in Sudan. The second variable is the latitude. So the column that the tool adds for latitude and also for longitude is the parsed column. You can ignore this. It's not very important. This is just the tool reading your original data and transforming it from text to number. And then it fixes the parsed number. So this tool is saying that you can fix your latitude so that these 2 points, so this point will fall in Zambia, in your original country of origin. You can fix the latitude to make it from here, from positive to negative. So if you add a negative sign to your decimal latitude, then this point, this point, the negative latitude with the original longitude, will fall actually in Zambia. It's giving you a suggestion to fix the latitude. And here it's only a suggestion to fix the country of origin. And here it didn't give any suggestion for the longitude, it only parsed it. So it's the same as the parsed version. So it means that there is no suggestion for the longitude. The only 2 things you can do is either fix your latitude by making it negative so that it falls in your country of origin, or fix your country of origin to make it match your original coordinates. Do you have any questions about this tool? Please type them in the chat. I will give you a moment just to type in the chat if you have any questions about how this tool works. You can also do the same. You can select all this page, copy it, and drop it in Excel. Delete those unnecessary rows and highlight the columns that are added, just for you to have access to this in an easier way through Excel. So, sorry, I changed the, yeah. So I'm back in the tool. And there's a question in the chat. How can I find missing numbers in accession number? Okay, I go back to the sample here. I will just, as an example, delete a few accession numbers. And a very easy way, if you're working in a table that has a filter enabled, you can enable the filters here. Like for now, they're disabled. You can click anywhere inside the table and enable the filters and filter only. So click on select all to deselect everything except for the blanks. So this is a very quick way to find your missing numbers in the accession number. Same for all the other columns. The only necessary information for you to be able to upload online in Genesys is the inst code, accession number, genus, and DOI if there are DOIs. So you can check for blanks for missing data. That's a quick tip on how to check for it here by selecting the blanks. So I will return to the validator tool. And the third validation for my data that I can do through this tool is to see if this accession coordinate, the geographic coordinate, do they fall on land or in water? Because you see sometimes here in the accession map, some accessions might, as we said, when there are errors or mishaps that have happened to your data, it might drag your accessions to the water. So you can validate through this tool for any reason if your accessions are in land or on water by clicking this button here after pasting your geographic data. Sorry. By pasting your geographic data and clicking on classify as land or water. And here you will see that there's a column called land or sea check. So this checks if these longitudes and latitudes are falling in the land or on the water. And here it happens that everything is on land. You can also copy this and paste it in Excel and filter it and, work with it in Excel the way we saw before. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat because we are about to close this webinar series. Thank you everyone for joining today and for following. We will be sharing with you the documentation step by step on how you can apply these tips, and we will also be sharing with you the recording of this webinar. And thank you again. Now have a great day or evening ahead wherever you are. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to send them to helpdesk@genesys-pgr.org.